Hi everyone, my name is Farah, and I did my place narrative project on the Kinnickinnic River. The part of the Kinnickinnic River that I looked at is part of Milwaukee's Harbor District. The specific area I chose to look at starts here at South Kinnickinnic Avenue and leads into the harbor. It is one of the three primary rivers that flows into the harbor and then into Lake Michigan, along with the Menominee River and the Milwaukee River. This area is very industrialized because of its proximity to Lake Michigan. During the growth of industrialization in Milwaukee, this area was a great spot for shipping traffic. This used to be an area where many imports and exports would leave from. As we go along the river, we see there are no houses along this area. But as you go more south and inland, there are homes that are part of the Bayview area. The one thing here is a restaurant that takes advantage of the riverside view for outdoor seating. As you can see, this area is very industrialized with no major buildings, homes, and little to no green space. The Kinnickinnic River is a strip in between the area of Milwaukee, which we call the Harbor View, and this peninsula called Jones Island. Here you have the UWM School of Freshwater Sciences, water facilities, and sewage plants. The river leads to the Port of Milwaukee, where it ends and meets with the other two rivers. We can use O'Neill, Holland, and Light's three environmental values to analyze how we use and interact with this area. The value that is not as evident here is the N value. We have not used this location for recreational or aesthetic purposes. Much of what is there are for purposes to upkeep the city. It is not a touristy area or an area that is open to the public. We did see the restaurant that was closer to South Kinnickinnic Avenue, and as you move west along the river, you do see that the river is used more for recreational purposes, but that is not the specific area I chose to focus on. What we do see in the Harbor District is plans for revitalization to attract more business and tourism. I will touch more on that later, but as of right now and in the past, this area holds no in value for us. What we do see is the width environmental value. Width is tricky because at first glance you would not notice it because we do not live in this area. Looking at the history though, we can see that this area actually used to be home to many people. We look to Jones Island, which is now an industrialized peninsula. But more than 100 years ago, it began as a marsh island between Milwaukee and the Kinnickinnic River. Initially, the peninsula was settled by Polish and German immigrants in 1870. Settlers were drawn to this area because of its Indian population and because of its access to the western frontier. They made their living by fishing in Lake Michigan. Unfortunately, they never obtained a deed for the land, so they were considered squatters by the city of Milwaukee, and the vast majority of the immigrants were evicted in the 1920s to make way for the shipping port. By the 1940s, all of the settlers in the area were vacated. Currently, Jones Island is home to the Port of Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewer District's primary wastewater treatment plant, and other municipal services. From the land, in the past we have used it for our own personal gain and exploitation. Recognizing the industrial use of its inner harbor, Milwaukee also realized that shipping could not be crowded indefinitely into congested rivers hampered by bridges with street traffic in turn interrupted by bridge openings. Milwaukee therefore devised a comprehensive plan to acquire strategic lakefront areas and to develop an outer harbor under city control with modern port facilities. Originally, the Kinnickinnic River flowed almost directly into Lake Michigan. The landform that protected the harbor was a long, marshally split Jones Island that extended southwards from the center of the city. To shorten the distance from the harbor entrance to the city, a straight cut was made across the base of the split at the northern end. The original harbor entrance was filled so that Jones Island was now a peninsula extending northwards with its base to the south. This effectively lengthened the river, and this new stretch was now formed a large portion of the harbor. The Kinnickinnic River is also historically modified. It has been straightened and dredged to accommodate large vessel commercial shipping. While Milwaukee still maintains a viable commercial port, some of the river reaches within the estuary are no longer maintained through dredging. How have the changes to the land and the human relationship with the Kinnickinnic River affected the area? Looking at the biotic pyramid, most obviously humans are at the top. Humans have had a big impact on the river and surrounding land. These impacts to the area have been both intentional and unintentional. Because of how industrialized the area is, it has produced a lot of pollution and chemicals into the water. The Kinnickinnic River is included in the Milwaukee Estuary Area of Concern, which is one of the Great Lakes areas of concern. Throughout the years, sediment accumulation in the river has been growing. High levels of PCBs, PHAs, and other heavy metals have been found in the river and in the inner/outer harbor area as a result of evolving urban growth and development, industrial activities, and the lack of effective regulations before the mid-1970s. Another area that has been affected by industrialization is the Grand Trunk Wetland. This area here is the largest and one of the last remaining wetlands in the Kinnickinnic watershed. Historically, the Grand Trunk Wetland was an extensive freshwater marsh, providing refuge for fish and wildlife alike. Today, because of the industrial land use, the system has become highly degraded. Restoration is vital to the health of the river. Luckily, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources received Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funding to restore the wetland. Restoration of this wetland can allow recreational activities such as canoeing and kayaking, and a visitor center with walking trails is to be established. This site can hopefully play an important role in boosting community assets and promoting tourism to the area. The city is now looking to revitalize this area. With major development projects advancing in the Harbor District, the city is moving to adopt draft guidelines for a riverwalk extension along Milwaukee's inner harbor. The harborfront will be connected to a park, and a mix of light industrial buildings, offices, and housing are among the future uses envisioned in a new plan that would dramatically transform Milwaukee's port area. The planning also crosses the Kinnickinnic River into a small northern portion of the Bayview neighborhood. After years of having no public access, all of these projects moving forward are going to create that public access. It will be interesting to see how our relationship with this area changes in the next upcoming years and how it will affect the surrounding environment and wildlife. Ostrom brings up the idea of common pool resources. Sometimes the surrounding areas and other parts of the river can be used for fishing. But the inner harbor in this area of the Kinnickinnic River is used more for industrialization and is moving towards being used for recreational uses, so no common pool of resources can be identified. Therefore, there are also no public goods and no resource units in this area. In the past, we saw that there were acts of appropriation when the settlers would use the river for survival by fishing. But today, we do not see any acts of appropriation since people do not fish or hunt in this specific area. Today, they're in fact acts of provision. Because of regulations set in place, these industries now have a responsibility to keep the water and the surrounding environment clean and safe. We also see organizations such as the EPA fund projects in this area to restore the environment and make it clean. Like I said, this area is mostly for private use, but the city is working on making it more accessible to the public. The Kinnickinnic River and the inner harbor is important to Milwaukee's history and growth. Today, many things are being done to this area for restoration and revitalization. Groups and organizations are committed to creating recreational use for this area and making it a safe environment for us, wildlife, and the Earth's health. Hopefully, this video has been informational and helped you learn something new about Milwaukee. Thank you for watching.